The gate closed behind her, with the sound of a vault ceiling. Savannah Reed counted the cameras before she counted the guards. One on the gate post, two under the eaves, a fourth turning slowly above the doors, following her the way a hawk follows something small. She is Black, American, 29, a child development specialist. She had crossed an ocean for this job. A woman in wine-red couture met her on the marble steps. She looked Savannah over from curls to shoes and held out a folded gray bundle, a uniform. Beige doesn't suit this house. Change before you meet anyone who matters. Savannah took it. She did not put it on. Inside, past oil paintings and a staircase that curved into shadow, one child sat on the floor of a room the size of an apartment. Seoa, 7 years old. She does not speak. She did not look up. The girl only drew a window, a woman standing inside it, and above them, a long coiling dragon with claws, a spined ridge, and a blank oval where a face should be. 2 floors up, behind a wall of screens, a man with a silver dragon inked across his throat watched every second. Kang Tae-hyun, the silver dragon. 4 specialists had come before her. 4 had failed. He reached for his phone. Everything on her, Atlanta. And find out why my daughter didn't scream when a stranger came into the room. But what the child pushed across the floor next. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a member and help our channel. The gate closed behind Savannah with a sound like a vault ceiling. 2 guards flanked the drive, and neither looked at her face. She counted the cameras instead, 1 on the gate post, 2 under the eaves, a 4th turning slowly above the front doors, following her the way a hawk follows something small on open ground. She kept her suitcase handle steady in her palm. In Atlanta, she had learned what happened to a woman who let her hands shake in front of powerful people. She had lost a job and a name that way once. She would not lose them again. A woman waited on the marble steps. Wine-red couture, gold at the throat, a phone held like a weapon she hadn't decided to use yet. Han Ye-jin looked Savannah over from curls to shoes and found the total unimpressive. You're the American. Savannah Reed. I'm the child development specialist. Your staff. Ye-jin held out a folded gray bundle. A uniform. Beige. Doesn't suit this house. Change before you meet anyone who matters. Savannah took the bundle. She did not put it on. Where is Seoa? Something flickered behind the gold and the lipstick. Ye-jin turned on her heel and walked, and Savannah followed her down a corridor wide enough for a car, past oil paintings and a staircase that curved up into shadow. Every 20 feet, another small black eye watched from the crown molding. Somewhere in this house, she understood, a man was already deciding what she was. They stopped at a white door. Ye-jin didn't knock. The room inside was the size of an apartment and held 1 child. Seoa sat on the floor with her back to a bay window, 7 years old, a light blue ribbon in long black hair, crayons scattered around her like fallen leaves. She did not look up when the door opened. She did not look up when Ye-jin said her name in a voice sharpened for adults. She's like this all day, Ye-jin said. 4 specialists before you, each lasted a week. The last one packed her own bags. She checked her phone. There's a car back to the airport at 6 if you're smart. Then she was gone, heels ticking away down the marble. Savannah stood in the doorway a moment longer. Then she set down the suitcase, set the folded uniform on a chair, and lowered herself to the floor 6 feet from the child. Close enough to be present, far enough to be safe. She said nothing. She had learned that silence, offered instead of demanded, was the first gift a frightened child would accept. Seoa drew. The girl's small hand moved with a purpose that had nothing childlike in it. A window took shape, then a woman standing inside the window, her back to the glass. Above the woman, filling the top of the page, a long coiling shape with claws and a spined ridge and a blank oval where a face should be, a dragon with no face. The crayon pressed so hard the paper dented. Savannah's breath went shallow. She kept her spine easy and her hands open on her knees. She reached, slowly, for a blue crayon at the edge of the scatter. She didn't take the child's paper. On the back of an envelope from her own bag, she folded 3 quick creases and made a small paper bird, and she set it on the floor in the neutral country between them. Then she withdrew her hand and waited. For a long moment, Seoa's crayon kept moving. Then it stopped. The girl looked at the bird. She looked at Savannah, one flat, measuring, adult look out of a 7-year-old's face, and with one finger, she pushed the paper bird back across the floor, into Savannah's shadow, and returned to her dragon. Savannah picked the bird up. She smiled, small and real. "Okay," she whispered. "We'll take our time." 2 floors above, in a room with no windows and a wall of screens, Kang Taehyun watched the American pick up the paper bird. He had watched the whole of it. The gate, the corridor, the moment she refused the uniform, the way she'd sat 6 feet from his daughter and let the silence be. On the center monitor, Seoa's small hand kept moving over the dragon with no face, and the muscle along his jaw tightened once. 4 women had come through that room. 4 had failed his daughter, and 1 had cried in the doorway on her way out. He had expected this one to last 3 days. He tapped a name on his phone. It answered on the first ring. Dojin. His voice was quiet, the kind of quiet that made men lean in. The new one. Read. Sir. Everything. Atlanta. The incident there, the one that cost her the last job. Who she owes. Who she's talked to since she landed. His eyes stayed on the screen, on the child, on the space where a face should have been drawn and never was. And find out why my daughter didn't scream when a stranger came into the room. A pause on the line. You want her removed? Taehyun didn't answer at once. On the monitor, Savannah folded a second bird and did not offer it, only kept it in her open hand where the child could see. Siwa's crayon slowed. For the first time in 11 months, the girl's eyes lifted from the page and rested, for 2 full seconds, on another person's face. The onyx ring turned once around his finger. No, he said. Watch her, closely. He ended the call before Dojin could ask the question in his voice. Down in the sunlit room, Savannah didn't know she'd just been seen. She only knew the child had looked up, and that the look had held. She set the second bird on the floor, in the same neutral country as the first, and this time she didn't push it forward. She waited to see whether it would come back. It didn't. Seo pressed a new drawing into Savannah's hands before breakfast. A woman at a window, a dragon with no face. The same 2 shapes, over and over, as if the crayon knew something the girl couldn't say. Savannah knelt to her level. You want me to keep this one too? The girl nodded and slipped away down the corridor. By the 3rd week, the household had learned a fact nobody spoke aloud. The child ate for Savannah. She slept when Savannah read to her. She lifted her arms only for Savannah to button her coat. Dr. Lee ran her tests, filled her charts, and closed her folder with the same sentence each time. Whatever you're doing, don't stop. Mrs. O started setting an extra place without being asked. Park Dojin was not so easily moved. He pulled Savannah's records apart line by line. The clinic in Chicago, the reference letters, the year she'd lost her license before it was returned with an apology no one printed. He drove to the airport twice to meet flights that carried her old colleagues. He wanted a crack. He found a woman who had once been blamed for a child's fall she didn't cause, and who had never stopped working with children anyway. He brought the file to Taehyun himself. She's clean. The Chicago thing was a lie a supervisor told to save herself. Taehyun read 3 pages and set them down. I know what a lie told by a supervisor looks like. You want me to keep watching? Watch everyone else. Something shifted after that, and it shifted in small ways. He began leaving the office before the city lights came on. The staff noticed the car in the drive an hour early and said nothing. He would find the two of them on the playroom floor, a wall of crayon drawings taped at a child's height, and he would lower himself down beside them instead of calling Seoa to stand. One night, Savannah fell asleep in the reading chair with a book open on her chest. She woke to weight on her shoulders. His coat. He was already at the door, his back to her, pretending he'd come for something else. She talked in her sleep, Savannah said. A little, just sounds. He stopped. What sounds? I don't know yet. He left without answering, but the next morning, a lamp appeared beside the reading chair, and a second blanket, folded, as if the room had been quietly instructed to keep her. He took to checking that she reached the residential wing before the doors locked. Not walking her, just there, at the end of the hall, a shape confirming a shape, then gone. Savannah stopped pretending she didn't look for him. Han Ye-jin saw all of it. She had waited years for the seat beside Taehyun, and she had never once made him leave work early. She adjusted her strategy the way a surgeon adjusts a blade. First the uniform, a memo, unsigned, standardizing household staff attire, and a gray dress laid on Savannah's bed. Savannah wore it. Then the meals moved to the kitchen. Staff eat with staff, Ye-jin said, smiling with her whole mouth and none of her eyes. You understand. Savannah understood exactly. She ate in the kitchen with Mrs. O and asked her about the family, and Mrs. O, who missed nothing in 40 years of service, began to answer. Then Ye-jin went for the child. A charity gala, photographers, the whole family on display. The list came out, and Seoa's name was not on it. She gets overwhelmed, Ye-jin told the mother, Kang Hye-suk. The specialist agrees. The specialist had agreed to no such thing. Savannah found Seoa in the coat closet with her drawings, dressed in the light blue ribbon she wore for occasions no one had invited her to. The girl was arranging the pages in an order. Window, dragon, window, dragon, and then one Savannah had never seen. 2 faceless figures, in a hallway. Savannah went still. She had assumed the dragon was the father, the neck ink the whole house whispered about, a thing a child would fixate on. But the second figure stood apart, taller, at the far end of the hall, and Seoa's crayon had pressed so hard the paper had torn where the face should be. Beneath both figures, a door, beneath the door, red. Savannah spread the pages across the closet floor and read them the way Dojin had read her file. Not scribbles, a sequence, a night. The window where a woman had stood, the hallway, the second figure who did not belong. The child hadn't stopped drawing the same picture because she was traumatized. She was reporting a crime, and no one in this house could speak the language. Savannah gathered the pages with both hands. That was when she heard footsteps stop outside the closet. Soft, deliberate, the walk of a man who never hurried because he never had to. Kang Min-jae opened the door. He looked at the pages, then at Savannah, then at the child, and his face arranged itself into concern, the way water fills a glass. She shouldn't be in here, he said gently. These drawings upset her. Perhaps it's time we found a specialist better equipped. He crouched, took the top page, the 2 figures, the torn face, and studied it a beat too long. I'll speak to Ye-jin, and to my cousin. We only want what's healthy for the girl. He set the page down face first. You've done more than we could have asked, Miss Reed, truly. He said it the way other men said goodbye. Savannah walked Seoa back to the residential wing and, for the first time, did not look for Taehyun at the end of the hall. She looked behind her instead. Min-jae stood where the corridor bent, watching them go, one hand flat against the wall, exactly where the child's crayon had put a faceless man. She locked the drawings in her own case that night, all but one. The torn-faced page was gone. The place cards were set before Savannah reached the dining room. Hers had been moved. Someone had lifted it from the far end of the table and slid it beside Coa, and the little girl had done it herself, the crooked letters of her own name pointing toward the empty chair like an invitation. Savannah found the child already seated, hands folded, the light blue ribbon smoothed twice for the guests. She sat. The room filled the way money fills a room, low voices, the click of heels on marble, the careful laughter of people who owed Kang Taehyun something. Mrs. O moved along the wall with a tray. Park Do-jin stood near the door and watched everyone the way he watched everyone. At the head of the table, Taehyun said little. His eyes kept returning to his daughter, then to the woman beside her, then away. Ye-jin arrived last. She always arrived last. She crossed the room, greeting each guest by name, and stopped when she saw the seating. For a moment, nothing on her face moved. Then it moved all at once. "There's been a mistake," she said, loud enough for the near half of the table. "The staff arrangement." "Seo-ah asked for it," Savannah said. "Seo-ah is 7. Yejin smiled at the guests, sharing the burden of a child's foolishness. "Nannies take care of children. They do not take the place of mothers." A fork paused somewhere down the table. Seo-ah's shoulders drew in. She reached under the cloth and found Savannah's sleeve. "Take her plate," Ye-yin told Mrs. O. "Staff are served in the kitchen. We'll all be more comfortable." Mrs. O looked at Taehyun. Taehyun set down his glass. Whatever he was about to say, he was slow to say it. And slowness, in that house, was a decision of its own. Savannah stood before he finished deciding. She unclasped the small hand from her sleeve first, gently, and pressed the ribbon flat one more time so the child would have something to hold on to that wasn't fear. Then she straightened. "You're right," she said. Her voice carried without rising. "I never tried to take the place of Seo-ah's mother." The room went still. "But I also never used that place to win her father." For one full second, Yejin's face was only a face, bare, young, caught. Then the couture and the composure came back over it, like water closing. "Get out," she said. "You're finished here, tonight." Yejin. Taehyun was on his feet. "She insulted me in front of your associates. She answered you." Min-jae rose too, palms out, the reasonable cousin, the peacemaker who was always somehow nearest the fire. "Let's not do this at the table. Yejin, sit. Taehyun, please." His voice was oil poured on the exact spot where oil would spread the flame. "We'll settle staffing tomorrow, quietly." Savannah didn't wait for them to settle her. She had learned, once already in this house, what it cost to stand in a room and let others decide whether she belonged in it. She would not learn it twice. She pushed her chair in. She said goodnight to Seo-ah, only to Seo-ah, and she walked out through the guests, past Do-jin, past the long mirror where her own reflection kept perfect pace, and she did not look at the woman in wine red. Taehyun found her in the corridor by the west stairs, where the sound of the dinner became a murmur behind a closed door. "Name a number," he said. She turned. "Double what you make, triple. I'll write it tonight." He rarely spoke fast. He was speaking fast now. "This is one evening. Ye-jin is—" "Your daughter loves me," Savannah said. "But this house still treats me as someone who can be put out when I become inconvenient." He had no number for that. "A raise doesn't change the door," she said. "It only tells me how much you'll pay to keep it shut." She climbed the stairs. He let her. In the small room they'd given her, she took down the leather case and opened it on the bed. She folded the 2 dresses. She wrapped the good shoes in the paper they'd come in. She worked without hurry, the way she'd taught a dozen frightened children to pack. one thing at a time, so the leaving stayed smaller than the fear. The last thing she reached for was the drawing. COA's drawing, the one Savannah had saved from the fire in the wastebasket weeks ago. A house, a small hand in a large one, a torn place where a face should be. Wind hit the window. The storm had been building since dusk, and now it broke. Rain came sideways against the glass, and the garden lamps below shivered and blurred. Somewhere in the house a shutter began to bang, once, twice, a nervous heartbeat of wood on stone. Savannah zipped the case. She heard it before she understood it, Mrs. O's voice down the hall, then Dojin's, then the particular pitch a house makes when its center has moved. A door standing open that should not be open, a bed with the covers thrown back and no one in them. Savannah dropped the case. She was in the corridor before she'd decided to move, and the nursery was empty, the small blue ribbon lying on the pillow where a girl should have been sleeping and wasn't. The window was unlatched. Below it, past the terrace, the garden fell away into black and rain, and the gate that led to the river road. Seo, Taehyun's voice came up the stairwell, not a boss's voice, not the silver dragon, just a father's, and every door in the house was opening now. Savannah looked at the empty bed. She looked at the open window and the storm eating the lawn beyond it. Then she ran toward the rain and did not stop for a coat. The greenhouse door hung crooked on its hinges, and Savannah pushed through the wet leaves before the guards had cleared the east lawn. Inside, the glass had fogged with old heat. And there, wedged between two clay pots, sat Seoa, knees to her chest, the ribbon soaked flat against her hair. Savannah dropped to the dirt floor and kept her hands still, palms open, the way she had waited for 100 frightened children before this one. "I'm here," she said. "I'm not going anywhere." The girl's fingers curled around a torn piece of paper, a drawing. Savannah had seen its twin a dozen times, the house, the small figure, the tall shape with the dragon on its neck. But this copy had a second shape beside the first, faceless, standing where the shadows fell across the hallway. Seoa pressed the drawing into Savannah's hands. Her mouth moved. No sound. Then a sound. "He was there," the girl whispered. Savannah went still. 7 months of silence, and the first words came out cracked and small and certain. "Who, sweetheart, who was there?" Seoa lifted one finger toward the greenhouse door, toward the man who had just appeared in its frame, rain dripping from the hem of his coat. "Kang Min-jae." "Uncle," Seoa said, and shrank back into the pots. Min-jae's smile arrived a half-second too late. "There you are. Everyone's been looking." He crouched, arms wide, the practiced warmth of a man who had rehearsed being loved. "Come to Uncle, Seoa. It's dangerous out here." Savannah did not move from the space between them. "She's staying with me. She's frightened. She needs family." "She spoke," Savannah said. "First time since her mother died. And the first thing she said was your name." The warmth drained out of his face. For a moment, he was only a man doing arithmetic, counting exits, counting witnesses, counting seconds. Then he lunged, not for Savannah, but for the child, and she understood in one bright flash what he intended. Not to comfort her, to carry her out past the gates as the one thing no guard would dare fire toward. She threw herself across Seoa and locked both arms around the small body. "Run to me," she said into the girl's ear. "Only me. Hold on." Seoa's hands knotted into Savannah's dress and held. Min-jae got one hand on the ribbon and pulled. Savannah pulled back, dirt grinding under her knees, silent, because a scream would only tell him where the pressure was weakest. She refused to be moved. A body between a predator and a child, and nothing in the world was going to unbend her arms. "Let go of her," Min-jae hissed. "Make me." He raised his fist. It stopped in the air. Taehyun's voice cut across the greenhouse like a blade dropped on stone. Take your hand off my daughter. He stood in the doorway, soaked through. Do-jin and 3 men fanned behind him. But Taehyun's eyes weren't on his cousin. They were on the drawing crushed in Savannah's grip. The 2 figures in the hallway, the second one faceless no longer. You were in the house that night, Taehyun said slowly. You told me you were in Busan. Min-jae straightened. The mask came off all at once. You were never going to give me the North Districts. Your wife talked you out of it, so I solved the problem the family wouldn't. The words landed in the humid air and stayed there. You had her killed, Taehyun said. Not a question. A wait. I had a rival removed. She happened to share your bed. Min-jae's mouth twisted. The child saw me leave the room. I've spent 7 months waiting for her to open her mouth. Lucky for me, she never. She just did, Savannah said. Do-jin moved before Min-jae could. 2 men took his arms. He stood limp. Men like him go quiet once the ledger stops balancing. He only looked at the child he had spent half a year fearing, and the child held his gaze. Taehyun crossed the floor and went down onto both knees beside them. He reached out, then stopped, uncertain, a man who had forgotten how to be gentle. Seo-ah decided for him. She let go of Savannah's dress with one hand and put it flat against her father's chest. Appa, she said. He made a sound that had no name. By the time the rain thinned, the courtyard was full of headlights. Min-jae went out through the front gate in cuffs, past the very people whose respect he'd murdered to earn. Han Ye-jin watched her leverage disappear into a police sedan, understanding a beat too late that the story had never needed her at all. The staff will confirm it, Mrs. O told Kang Hae-suk. She paid 2 of them to make the American look like a thief, to drive her out. The matriarch turned her head 1 slow degree toward Ye-jin, and that single look did more than any shouting. Ye-jin's mouth opened. Nothing came. The family she had bled herself pale to please now saw her plainly, and there was no room in that seeing for her. Taehyun didn't even raise his voice. The engagement is off, he told his mother. Not after tonight. He found Savannah an hour later in the study, a folder already laid on the desk between them. A foundation, a directorship, her name typed in cool official letters. She read it once and pushed it back. So, this is how you keep me. A title, a salary. You turn tonight into a contract. No. He set the folder aside, face down, and left his hand flat on top of it. Don't stay, because Seo-ah needs you. Don't stay, because this house needs you. Stay, because I love you. And because I want to build a life where you never have to ask what your place is. Savannah stayed in Seoul, on her own terms. The center she opened by the river answered to no one. Funded by Kangsung money, governed by her signature alone, its doors opened to any child the city had learned to overlook. Autumn came back around to the garden, where a mute girl had first found her voice. Seo-ah, taller now, walked across the grass with both hands cupped around a small box, the way you carry something that might fly away. She set it in Savannah's palms. Inside sat a ring, and beneath it, a drawing. 3 figures, hands joined, and on the tallest, the dragon at last had a face, and the face was smiling. Behind her, Taehyun waited on one knee in the dirt where he'd learned his daughter's first word. Savannah looked at the drawing a long time. Then she looked at the 2 of them and stopped asking what her place was, because she was already standing in it. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever been handed a uniform meant to make you invisible and refused to disappear? Have you ever reached for someone the whole world had already given up on, sitting in the silence until they finally looked back? And when you became the one person who could not be replaced, did anyone ever truly see the truth of who you were? Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about dignity, belonging, and hidden truth, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel.